Hi, this is Adrienne Barbeau. Just call me Billy. Everyone does. And you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com.
Welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neal, and I'm joined by PJ STARKS and Eric Huskisson of Volumes of Blood Horror Stories. How you guys doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing great, sir.
Excellent. I'm doing very good. In fact, I was just watching the first one because I saw it was on Amazon Prime.
It is, and if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free, and that's what's awesome.
Yeah. So, I assume the first one you guys were happy with since you did a second one. When did you decide to do the second one?
Well, after we did the first film, it got a reaction that none of us anticipated. It got all the glowing reviews and just what audiences and things were telling us, people at the film festivals, and when it won awards and things. So anyway, at that point, because of the buzz that seemed to be going around and all the good comments and things, we kind of started, that was the point in which we kind of started talking about doing a sequel. There was never any intentions to do a sequel. It was really supposed to be a one-off project that was just going to come and go. We didn't think it was going to do anything. But then once all that went down, we decided, hey, maybe we should move forward and talk about doing a sequel. And I had come up with a concept. And I think also, too, we kind of wanted to prove to ourselves that the first one wasn't just a fluke, lightning in a bottle. So, we wanted to see if we did move forward on a second one, would it do as well as the first one?
Mm-hmm. Is it a lot of the same directors involved?
For the second one?
Mm-hmm.
There was a couple of different ones. We did have Nathan Milliner come back and direct. He actually directed 2 sequences in it and did some writing. That was one of the things with the second one. We thought if we're going to have to step up the game from the first one, since it got such good reviews, we wanted to add new people with, talent that was different than what we had in the first one. Mm-hmm. So that's where we got John Maynard and James Treacle and
Justin Seaman,
Sean Blevins.
Mm-hmm.
And we just wanted to bring in, there's still, a lot of them are from, within a few hours of us, a couple of states away. But we just wanted to up the talent level and have some new talent come in just to see how
different
we could bump up the second one.
Yeah. It's cool to have different voices on each one.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that was another reason why we brought different directors in, because when you do an anthology, you with what we're doing, because they're not just a bunch of random sequences. Ultimately, they're all interconnected in some form or fashion. Mm-hmm. We still wanted different stylistic visuals and different tones and different types of atmosphere. That was throughout, and by having new directors on the second one, that would kind of help keep it separate that much more from the first one, since technically the second one is a standalone film.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you how do you go about, do you write all the stories beforehand? Does each director have total control over what they're making? How does the whole process come about?
Well, with the first film, I wrote 3 of the stories, and then the other writer, Todd Martin, came on. He wrote the other 2. Then when Nathan came on board and directed Encyclopedia Satanica, he asked if he could give that script an overhaul, and then that's where Nathan came on board as a writer. The majority of the sequences were either ideas I had come up with or ideas that I went back and forth on with Todd. And then of course we take it that much further, and everybody kind of has some input on it. Going into the second, it was a similar situation. I wrote the majority of the stories, and then Nathan, because he came back on to the project, he asked if he could go ahead and write his own sequences, and we were cool with that, so we just went ahead and let him do that. He did such a good job on Encyclopedia Satanica that we felt confident that he would be able to, bring something really cool to the table for the sequel. Mm-hmm. And so that's but we did have after all the initial scripts got written and went through several drafts, we did have a meeting between all of us where we sat down and And part of the reason we did the sequel too is we wanted to make sure that all the stories were stronger. The characters were stronger, the stories were more solid. So we had a big sit down about it and kind of went through all the stories, and we all kind of helped flesh them out a little bit more as we got closer to actually shooting the film.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the directors were handed the scripts once we approved them.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically, got to pick and choose until you got to the last director. And it was like, well, if you want to direct, here you go. So, but, a lot of them did get their voice on which one they wanted to do, or beg for the one they really wanted to do. And then past that, it was just whatever was left. But that's how they ended up with each script.
Yeah. Now, what are your guys' background? Like, how did you become partners?
Back in 2000, I started working at a TV station. I did that for about a decade. I was a videographer and editor in charge of special projects. Then at that point, that's when I kind of started really getting involved in doing like some more serious filmmaking and all that. I did my first feature in 2008, and that was my first serious effort. It was called Hallows Eve. And then after that, I kind of dabbled in different various types of genres and things, but I always came back to horror. And then I guess it was 2012 maybe is when Eric and I met. Was it 2012? 13. Was it 2013?
12, yeah, I was confused.
What happened was I kind of stepped away from filmmaking there for a while. I became what I called a glorified wedding planner. I did a lot of independent filmmaking events and things. I had pitched this idea to the local public library called Unscripted, where filmmakers come in, they show their short films, and I'm real big on DVD commentaries. So the long and short of it is they screen their film, they do a brief Q&A, and then what they do is they sit down with the audience, they show their film a second time, and at that point they do a live audio commentary experience that's interactive with the audience, and it became really, really popular. But we ended up doing a zombie night, and that's how I ultimately ended up meeting Eric, and I'll let him take over from this point.
Yeah, I basically grew up a horror fan, kind of. I was a big fan of special effects from very young. I had a little cigar box I kept with stuff in when I was a kid, and as I got older, fell in love with John Carpenter and got into theater in high school. And after high school, I actually went to college to be a theater major. That kind of fell through for reasons, and then I kind of helped with local theater around here doing more background stuff, and kind of just started working, got married and got out of it. And a friend of mine talked about this thing PJ was doing at the library and wanted to go. So I went, really liked it. Saw he was having a zombie night. There was a chance for me to do makeup, make a little cash or whatever. And he liked what he saw. We started talking, and then he did a thing called the Death Pack through a local radio station. Called me up, said, hey, you want to be a zombie? And we started talking, and we went to a festival and kind of became really good friends. And then we did the first volumes of Blood, and it did well. And we thought, well, what do we need to do to be bigger and better? And thought, well, maybe we need to kind of form a business to become more serious and more legal. And that's where Blood Moon Pictures came into play. We decided in December 2015, we joined forces and became Blood Moon Pictures LLC. And pretty much, unless he's producing something for a bunch of other people, we're somewhere or another, it seems like every week doing something for one of the movies we've worked on or getting ready to work on.
Mm-hmm. Nope. PJ mentioned the kind of like a live audio commentary, and I see that's like a special on the Blu-ray. Is that exactly what you're talking about?
Are you talking about on the DVD that's coming out?
Yeah, it says a premiere night audio track, and then there's a premiere night featurette.
No, that's actually that's a little bit different. Unscripted, what ended up happening with that is the library ended up taking that over, and it has since become an annual event. I've stepped away. I don't facilitate that anymore, but the library keeps it going. Mm-hmm. But being a fan of DVD commentaries, ironically, the premiere night audio commentary, that is, when you listen to that, it's the very first audience that sat down in a room. So it's about 400 people together watching the film for the first time. And I got that idea from not a horror film, but from the movie Freddy Got Fingered. On that DVD is an audio commentary where you can watch the movie with the premiere night audio. And I watched it one time, and it was when you have a surround sound system, it's the coolest thing because it sounds like you're in a theater and you can hear everybody's reactions. To jokes and things that were happening in the film. And while Volumes of Blood Horror Stories is not a comedy, there are some jokes in it. But the great thing about horror is that if you have a really elaborate, visceral death scene, audiences tend to have a reaction to that. So when you get enough people together in a room, you get that same kind of audible response. And by recording that audio, you kind of experience the film with the first audience that ever got a chance to sit down and watch the movie. So anytime somebody gets killed or, sometimes even though a death can be really violent, it can be fun to watch and kind of funny to experience. So you hear the audience's reaction to somebody, getting stabbed in the ass or, a blood explosion into somebody's face. So that's what that is. That's just kind of an opportunity for it's an audio commentary, but it's not someone sitting there talking about the movie. It's kind of your opportunity to be able to sit down and watch the film with the very first full group of people that got to see the film on the big screen.
I like this idea. I actually never heard of that before, and I really like it because, like you said, it feels like you're part of the audience. Only you're at home.
Right. And if you ever get a chance to watch Freddy Got Fingered, watch it with that commentary. Of course, right after you watch Volumes of Blood Horror Stories with the premiere night audio.
Which the Tom Green commentary on Freddy Got Fingered is very good. It made me see the movie in a whole different light because he talks about basically just trying to put as much stuff that he never thought anyone would let him do and see if they'd let him get away with it. And then after I heard that, I was like, now I like that movie for that reason.
Well, I went through that phase where I was really into Jackass and really into Tom Green and those guys. So, and I still get into that stuff on occasion. I'll still watch it because I think it's pretty funny. I know it can be an acquired taste, but
yeah, I was always a fan of Tom Green. I can't say I was a big fan of Freddy Got Fingered when I first saw it though. But through their commentary, I've grown to like it. But we're not here to talk just about Freddy Got Fingered, even though that's a great movie.
Right.
But no,
we're here to talk about Freddy Got Fingered. Yeah.
My first year.
When you make Volumes of Blood, when you did the new one, Horror Stories, does each director bring their own crew, or do you have one set crew for all the each of the stories?
Well, that's a good question. Actually, I'm glad you asked that because it gives a shout out to the people that came on for the second movie. Basically, to back up the first movie, that's exactly what happened. Usually the directors brought their own cinematographer in, director of photography. They wanted their own crew, and we were fine with that. We were just there to make sure it was going smooth and for cleanup and stuff. The second one, Christopher Bauer out of Paducah, Kentucky, had contacted PJ about a group that he works with out of Paducah, and they had a cinematographer, they had a director of photography, they had 2 or 3 crew people,
they had lighting people,
and a wardrobe lady, and a makeup lady, and a sound lady, and thought, hey, this is something, we were close together, maybe we ought to hook up. And we went and met them, we talked to them, and they ended up coming on to every set and doing all the lighting, all the wardrobe, all the photography, did some of the producing, did most of the sound. They did a lot, and we meshed with them so great. They would just get along with them good. They listened, that they're very intelligent and very talented, to the point where we're doing the exact same thing for the third one. They're coming on, and they're our main production crew now.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys, Johnny Holt, who is director of photography, he is coming on and going to direct one of the new featurettes on our third movie as well. And this one, he actually directed Feeding Time and Horror Stories. And he's going to come back. He's going to be the only one actually to come back in the third one. And like Nathan came back in the second one, we're going to have Johnny come back to the third one. And he's going to direct one of those. But that whole production crew, they were phenomenal, man. They were great to work with, and we can't wait to work with them again. I mean, just so glad Christopher called PJ and that got worked out, because they're just, I can't talk enough about it.
Well, it's kind of funny too how that whole thing worked out. One of the things that we wanted to do with the sequel that we didn't really get an opportunity to do with the first one was, like Eric had said, with the first film, we had multiple different cinematographers coming in and different people running the camera. And the problem we ran into is that you kind of lose that continuity of look, because you're having to bring every person who comes in kind of up to speed as to what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So going into the next one, we said, well, if we only had one person shooting the whole entire film, we would have that continuity. And while there is going to be different styles, stylistic choices because of the different directors, if you have that same person behind the camera, they're going to know going from sequence to sequence kind of what's been done before, and you don't have that learning curve, or that take that time to where you have to tell them what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so when Chris messaged me, Chris Bauer, he originally was saying he wanted to audition, and then I just ended up talking to him, and I called him, I think that very first night, and we talked pretty much all night. And he had done some producing, because he and John Holt and Austin Madding and their whole crew, they had done the Dunes Chapel Horror that has Bill Oberst Jr. in it. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but that was their film they had done. It got picked up by Midnight Releasing. And so we went and met them. And the other funny thing is like, when you do independent film, you're always, you want to do as good as you possibly can, but at the same time, you're always, to some degree hindered by budget or cost, or, you're always trying to look at, how to do things, to do them on the cheap. And when it comes to like wardrobe, for instance, it's always like, well, why do we need a wardrobe person? We'll just run to Walmart and buy duplicates of the costumes. We'll find something that works, and we'll have multiple ones. And so Chris really talked us into having a wardrobe person, and that was Barbie Clark, and she came onto the project. Love her. And yeah, she did an amazing job. Yep. It's one of those situations where when you start working with a person and they bring something new to the table, you kind of look back and you think, how did I ever do this before that person was around? It's like with production assistants. Like, I look back at these films that I did when it was me and maybe a handful of people, and I was doing multiple things, cinematography and all this stuff on set, special effects and blah, 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 blah. But now we'll have, 12 production assistants on set, and you just, I don't know how we did it before without ever having production assistants. So now we have Barbie, and she would show up to set, and we have, she would do a costume for a specific villain or a serial killer or something that was in the film. And I mean, she's the reason why the film has such an iconic look, with a lot of the, from the woman in Fear for Sinners Here to Atticus Crow in Murder, Death, Killer, and even the harvester in Trick or Treat, and Eric's character Fred in the birthday or the death day party. It's like, she brought just this fantastic wealth of knowledge when it came to wardrobe. And if you had told me like 3 or 4 years ago that I was going to be sitting here doting over someone because of their wardrobe, I would have been like, probably not. But now, having worked with Barbie and seeing what she can do, it's like,
you see the difference.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it brought so much more production value to the film. It's just, so I can't imagine moving forward without having a wardrobe person there, because that's one less thing you have to take care of. But when it's someone who's really good at it and knows what they're doing, it opens up a whole new door.
Mm-hmm. And Do you think having the one crew, one cinematographer and everything also keeps it, even though each one's a different tone, it kind of looks like it's all in the same universe?
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's what we wanted to do, you know, because and it's funny too, because the other really good thing that and this is something that we heard about a little later on, but when the directors, and I know this happened with Nathan a couple times whenever he was shooting Fear for Sinners Here or even Murder, Death, Killer, he would get with John and Austin and he would say, okay, guys, here's what my shots are. And then John would say, well, you know, Justin already did this shot and this shot on, you know, the Death Day party, or, you know, or James already did this shot in A Killer House. So, of course, Nathan's like, shit, now I've got to come up with a different shot idea. But the great thing is that that keeps the film from repeating itself visually. And I think it helps to put the directors in a position to do what they're supposed to be doing, which is be creative. And I think that helped. And it helped bring more of a creative edge to the project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because basically, like Justin Seaman, he came in from Pennsylvania, like an 8-hour drive. He basically showed up on set, never met an actor that was going to be in his script, never met any of the crew, hadn't met PJ and I except for on Facebook. So he walked in the door with this movie to make, met the director of photography, his actors, and like started filming like an hour later. I mean, they had been in contact some, but never had been on set to see where he was going to be filming or what they were going to be doing. And so I got to give kudos out to these directors that showed up without meeting these people or doing anything, being on set, getting the vision from being there, and filming within an hour or two of showing up, working with these people all weekend, you know, weekend warrior for 16 hours a day and then driving home 8 hours and making a great film.
Murder, Death, Killer is mentioned in both movies. Well, it's the short and the second one. Where did Murder, Death, Killer come from?
Sorry. So when it comes to writing or especially with horror films, I'm huge on doing nuances or homages, because I'm, you know, a horror fan since I was probably 5 years old, and I've grown up with all these films, and I've been inspired by a lot of these films, and so I want to kind of, bring a little bit of that into what we do. So like with the first film, there's tons of references to horror films, not just slasher films, but supernatural thrillers and home invasion, just all the different subgenres. And we did the same thing in the second film. But with Murder, Death, Killer, when I came up with that concept, it was kind of it was an opportunity for me, because I wrote and directed that little piece. Spoiler alert, it's kind of, it's bait and switch from the beginning of the movie, because it's only the original Murder, Death, Killer piece is only the first 3 minutes of the first movie. And it's supposed to make you think like, oh my God, are these guys making this like shitty 80s throwback? And that's what we wanted. I wanted it to be very 80s. I wanted it to look like the 80s and the acting to be really cheesy. But at the same time, that character, I mean, that is essentially Baghead Jason is what it is. But, and like the sweat, Eric was the one in the costume. And, he, instead of like a pillowcase, it's a burlap sack. But the sweater that he's wearing underneath the suit jacket looks almost identical to the one that Jason Voorhees' mother wears. And so anyway, so that's kind of what that is. That's my love letter to the Friday the 13th franchise. And so what happened was we shot that bait and switch for the first film. And then when we got finished writing the script for the second film, there's something that just felt like something was missing. It was that bait and switch. And Nathan actually, I don't remember if he called me or if he texted me, but he said, hey, I've got this idea for this kind of bait and switch idea. And it's using your Murder, Death, Killer, because in the original, it's Murder, Death, Killer 3, Dead of Autumn.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that in the Volumes of Blood universe, Murder, Death, Killer is their Friday the 13th franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So Atticus Crow is their Jason Voorhees.
Mm-hmm.
So when Nathan came to me with his idea, it was, let's do, because remakes are really prevalent right now, let's pretend like if it was a real franchise, someone was doing a big budget remake of the original Murder, Death, Killer.
Mm-hmm.
And I had already written out kind of this, there was this whole backstory, because Nathan asked me, like, when did if this series was real, when did the original Murder, Death, Killer come out? And, by then I'd already figured all that stuff out. It was 1982 when it came out and all that. So anyway, so Nathan took all that information, and then he actually came up with the name Atticus Crow, but he took the idea from that little 3-minute piece and created a Michael Bay style remake for the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where Murder, Death, Killer came from. And then actually since then, we have thrown around the idea of doing like a feature length Murder, Death, Killer film.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, nothing's been fleshed out yet or anything. Right now, it's just kind of like an idea that we've tossed around. But that's where Murder, Death, Killer comes from. It's and for those who want to know, yes, I did take Murder, Death, Killer from Demolition Man. That's where I got it, because the Murder, Death, Kill part. Because I'm also a big fan of action movies, so that's where Murder, Death, Killer came from. Because I was trying to come up with a title that would seem like an 80s, like a cheesy 80s, but anyway, like a cheesy 80s kind of a title, and also kind of, give a shout out to some of these other types of genres.
Mm-hmm. It's got all the words that people would love for an 80s horror movie, Murder, Death, Killer. So it's perfect. And
we'll do that one.
Will Murder, Death, Killer be part of all the Volumes of Blood if you do more?
Actually, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I can't go into details just yet, but I have written I've written the wraparound. It's already been given to Jason Turner. He's one of the other writers on the third film, so he's going through the rewrite of it now. But there is another throwback sequence to the Murder, Death, Killer franchise that is in the third movie. So Atticus Crow from the second one will return, but the killing will be a lot more over the top and violent. Think Hatchet.
Yeah, I liked it when they were talking about the remake, because in a way it was not making fun of, but a little bit making fun of some of like people like us horror fans who talk about this stuff, because the one guy's like, they can't remake this classic, and in reality it's like this really pretty bad movie to begin with, but people act like it's this perfect movie that you could never remake. And the scene of the guy saying, where he's like he's shitting on the poster, and then he says, no, I'm having my childhood raped, and it's really over the top things that you always see and read online.
Right. And that's kind of when we do these films, that's one of the things that we obviously purposely do that. A lot of that I'll give Nathan credit for, because he wrote the majority of that stuff, and then we went back through and did some, a few little rewrites here and there. But ultimately, he had come up with the idea of doing something that's kind of, I guess you'd say meta. Honestly, I didn't even know meta was a thing until after we did the first Volumes of Blood, and then everybody talked about this meta twist that we did, and of course I'm like, what the hell are you guys talking about? But that was kind of the whole point of the twist in the first film, was to kind of take this insider look that we have at making independent horror films and being horror fans, and then kind of putting a twist on it and talking about it, and that's the same thing that we wanted to do in the second one. That's the same thing that we're going to do in the third one. it's being smart about the genre, I guess you could say. And I didn't, and honestly, I never even used the term smart horror until some people started kind of throwing that around in the reviews. But that's kind of what we want to do, you know. It's like, we know we're making a horror film. We want to bring fun back into horror. And I know there's some, I actually listened to a podcast the other day where these people had done a review, and it was not a particularly favorable review, but because they said it was overly meta for their taste, like it talked about horror too much. And I just thought that was kind of interesting because, funny enough, all the gripes and complaints and stuff like that, the stuff that they talked about in their podcast, they are exactly the people that we were stereotyping in the movie.
Right.
And, you know, it's ironically, and I'll give you a really good example right now of how ironic things can be. So I won't give any names, but like with the first film, there is a part. I play a role in the movie. I play a director. Someone had written this really awful topics page about me, like a real topics page talking about how I'm this egotistical maniac and blah, 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 blah. So when I came up with the twist, the meta twist for the first film, and I knew that I was going to be playing myself, essentially, I was like, how funny would it be to take this topics page and instead of playing myself, I play the topics version of myself. So that's what I did. I played the topics version of myself. So anyway, somebody took the time to write this topics page and then argue with all these people that got on there, right? And then I was able to use that as source material for the movie. Ironically, that turned out to be a lot of people's like favorite part was that, and that all came from like a real life topics thing. Well, somebody associated with the first film who is no longer associated, who became no longer associated with the second film, did something similar here recently, where they got on Facebook and like bashed me on Facebook openly. Essentially, I get for very similar things that were in the topics page. Ironically, they were a part of that scene. So I'll give you a little spoiler alert for the third movie. I am taking what they wrote on Facebook and I'm using it in the script for the third movie. So they were a part of the scene where I took a real life topics page that bashed me and I used it in the film that ended up being like a really popular part. They then in turn did that, I guess, forgetting about that, and now I'm able to use that as some source material for the third movie. And I've already written that part, and it's funny because somebody who read that part thought it was pretty funny. So I guess that's art imitating life.
Now, Eric, you've worked with PJ. Would you say he is anything like these, like this character that he portrayed in the first movie, or that was on the topics page?
Do I need to leave the room before he answers this? Or? There has been an ongoing joke for a long time with PJ. I've been around him now going on 4 years, and we're really good friends. We've been on several trips together, hang out together. There's been jokes about us because we've had to sleep in the same damn bed in hotel rooms for situations. So, you know, but over time, I call him a media whore. And we have had conversations about egos and chips on shoulders and stuff like that. But no, he is not like he is being portrayed in either one. Does he have that level? Probably. I've never seen it. Is it there? Yes. Anybody that is any kind of thing where you're putting yourself out there, whether it be photography, film, you're an athlete, or you're out there in front of people, you're going to have a level of that. I don't care who you're talking to, and if they tell you they don't, they're lying. You know, because it just happens. But it's been an ongoing joke with me and him and him all the time, and I'll just roll my eyes and walk away, and he'll die laughing. And he'll send me a message, and I'll say something. He'll go, "Hey, I am DPJ STARKS," and so then he'll say something one day, and I'll go, "Well, you are DPJ STARKS." So it's a big joke, but he is not the extreme that is being made out to these things. He has just upset these people in some way, so they're taking something they know about him and twisting it to make it look like it's a bad thing, and it could be, but it's not the way they're portraying it.
Mm-hmm. So,
that works.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the way I look at it is it's exactly what he said. If you do this, I have an ego. I mean, I'll admit that I have an ego. I mean, do I think I'm the shit? No.
Right.
But I think there is, at some point, you have to admit that you have some sort of talent, and you have to be confident in that talent. But there's a fine line between egotistical and confident. Mm-hmm. And you have to stay humble and humble yourself, or be around people that can keep you humbled. You have to keep your ego in check. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we laugh about it and joke about it, and that's how we deal with people that do think that he's that way. I mean, I've never heard that of me, of course, but now there's an ongoing joke that I'm Huskisson, and that's my new name.
That's right.
Instead of Eric, because of a thing that got written the wrong way one day, and it was a joke. But I think it comes with the territory. I mean, I hear it from my family all the time that I don't see in other states. Oh, am I going to see your name up in lights? Are you going to be famous? I'm like, don't be like holding your breath. It's not anything I'm looking for. Don't expect it to happen. You probably see my mugshot somewhere before you see me up in lights in Hollywood.
It's kind of like, I get on Facebook and, I'll post about the projects that we're doing, or, now we've got a Twitter page. If that was my wife, Katrina, she's the one who put that together. But I mean, when you do something, especially from an independent standpoint, you don't have the capital to get a PR firm or something along those lines.
You have to build interest.
You have to be the media whore that he says, and that's one of the things that I've kind of excelled at over the years. And I think that what it comes down to is this: when, like he said, I've angered some people along the way. I mean, there's a lot of truth to that, but I think what it really comes down to is it comes down to being a producer on a project. And we actually recently, he and I went and we had this talk about producing. And when I first started out doing this stuff, if I had somebody on the project and I had a problem with them, I just put up with that problem because I didn't feel like I had any other options. Mm-hmm. I didn't know who to turn to or what to do. But what it comes down to is that if you have a vision for a project, and I'm not the only creative entity on a project. Eric's not the only creative entity. Everybody who is a part of that project is giving of themselves and putting their talent into it, all the way down to, the guy that's sitting there just getting people cups of water. Even they have ideas, and you should listen to those ideas. But at some point, there has to be somebody who still has hold of the reins. And if somebody tries to hold the project over a barrel, you don't have to put up with that. And I've come to learn that you don't have to put up with that, because as talented as some people might be, there are other people out there that are just as talented, if not more, just as eager, if not more. And if you're going to be a problem, then you don't need to be a part of the project. Mm-hmm. And along the lines of the second film, that did happen several times.
Yeah.
And so, and once again, though, it comes down to ego. It comes down to people thinking that they're worth more than they really are. Because I can be replaced. I might be talented and I might have good ideas, but at some point, if I'm a dick about it,
you're not the only
or I'm a problem, then I need to be replaced. Mm-hmm. I don't need to be a part of the project, because you hinder the progress of the project. And if you hinder the progress of the project, then you just don't need to be around anymore. Mm-hmm. And because of that, it has caused some tension between me and several other people. And, you know, and the thing is they're talented, you know, but what ended up happening, ironically, is that a lot of these people that were either kicked off the project or walked because they couldn't get their way, they were replaced. And honestly, it might have taken a week to do it, but there was somebody else out there that actually came onto the project and opened up a bigger and a better door and you know, brought just as much to the project or more to the project. And that pisses people off. And but it comes down to ego, you know, because some people think that they're the end all. And if they don't get their way and they walk off of a project and it still succeeds, they're not going to be happy with you about that, you know, because they don't want to see you succeed. Mm-hmm. And that is my rant.
I don't know how many conversations we had last year before, during horror stories that we talked about people getting their butt hurt. And I think that's exactly what he's talking about. A lot of these people that are dogging him about ego or whatever, the problem is their ego. They didn't like the fact that he was in charge and telling them, no, they're not going to do that, or you're going to do it this way because this is my project. And it was like, oh, well, I'll just teach you. I'm the best at what I do, and you'll never replace me. Well, sorry about your luck, but
you got replaced.
He did a better job replacing you than what we had in the first place. You know, and so I mean, we've had this conversation, I don't know how many times, of how lucky or we got that this happened, because the things that got changed or replaced, I can't think of one of them that was equal or less, but if not to the extreme, better than what we had.
Right.
So along those lines, how do you pick which directors you guys work with?
Well, with the first one, it was a lot, you know, Jacob Belinsky and even Nathan and several of the others, minus John Kenneth Muir. Those were all friends that I had, and we all wanted to work together. So that's how they ended up on the project. Volumes of Blood was just an excuse for Nathan and I to get a chance to work together, because we'd been friends for a while at that point. Mm-hmm. And he was looking to kind of get back out there and do some directing, and that's how he ended up on the project. But like John Kenneth Muir, he's a horror author. He's written some really popular horror books and novels and things. He was a really good friend of Jim Blanton, who was one of the producers. And he was also the executive director of the Davis County Public Library, because the first film was done in conjunction with them. When it came to making the sequel, for the most part, we knew we wanted a clean slate. Now, Nathan did come back, but a lot of the other directors that came on at that point, we actively searched and looked around for some directors who had done some things, who had proven that they can make a movie and that they can do something that's worthwhile. Justin Seaman is one of those. He wrote and directed The Barn, and I mean right. John Holt, actually, he came through Chris Bauer, but at that point they had made Doom's Chapel Horror, and you know, we got online and we did our research and everything. So we felt comfortable bringing John on and allowing him to direct one of the sequences. And actually, this is my personal opinion, but Feeding Time, which is the sequence that he directed, is my favorite sequence in the entire film. And that's nothing against any of the other sequences. I think all the other sequences are really strong, but just because of what it is, and like, you know, the juxtaposition between really warm colors to really harsh blues and grays and things of that nature, just some of the things that he did, I think, and plus just the performances of Caleb and Shelby together, and the story, which I'm biased because I came up with, but that's beside the point. But yeah, I'm kind of going off on a tangent at this point. Mm-hmm. Don't shake your head, Eric. But that's kind of where we came up with the directors for the sequel. We actively searched for other, you know, talented artists, and then contacted them to see if they were interested. And that's really how that happened.
Well, that's where I've got to go off on a tangent here. I mean, he keeps saying we, but most of the director getting was on him, and this is where the whole media horror thing comes into play, and I give him a hard time about it, but over time I have learned, because he is on there so much and has contacted so many people through his Facebook just look at this and look at that, and then people have saw it and then talk to him, and then this person, and he becomes his friends with this person, and he sees he's friends with this person. If he hadn't been doing all that and still doing it, then the Treacles and the Blevins and the Siemens that all came in to be on, you know, we wouldn't have known about him. And that's where he came into play more. Now I did have say-so and get on there and look at their stuff and did approve them and all that.
That's what he thinks.
Yeah. Ego. And so that's where that all came about. I mean, his networking is unreal. And that's how we nailed down a lot of the directors, was because of that.
Mm-hmm. I have to ask, because I'm a big fan of Dead Dick Hammer. Who decided to use his music in Murder, Death, Kill? Well,
I mean, Nathan knew him pretty well, and didn't we get to know him through the first movie, I think, or did somehow?
Yeah, I mean, I had met him at a convention before. We met at a convention, but ultimately getting his music in the movie, that was Nathan. Nathan asked if, you know, that was cool if his music got used, and we were cool with that as long as Dead Dick was cool with that. Yeah. So that's how he became attached to the project.
Yeah, we really liked him when we met him down in Nashville, and it just worked out that, you know.
And I think originally he was supposed to play a role in the film.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
But due to some scheduling issues, he wasn't able to do it.
Mm-hmm. Maybe next time, because who doesn't love Dead Dick? So.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's just, you know, he makes such tasty music.
Exactly. And I know at the end it says, in memory of Brian Storm. Who was that?
So Brian, he came and he was on set for the first film, maybe for like 1 or 2 days. He wasn't there a whole lot. I got to know him because he was a bag boy at the local grocery store near my house. So that's how I ended up, you know, kind of talking to him and stuff outside of the project. So whenever we got closer to making the sequel, I always told him, I'm like, hey, you know, we got the sequel coming up. You should really come on board, and you should really be more a part of it. Because you know, he was really into, you know, directing and doing visual storytelling and stuff like that. So anyway, so he ended up coming on set. He was initially he was just a production assistant, but I mean, he kind of became our everyman for a lot of things. I mean, he ended up being there, I think, every single shooting day except maybe 1 or 2 days. But I mean, he helped in every department.
He was doing sound, helping with lights, running errands for us, cleaning up blood. He did everything. I think mostly he did a lot of sound there for us. So when he was when it was available for him to do that, he ran a lot of our sound. But and
it's funny too, because if you watch the credits towards the beginning of it, it says Brian Storm, pretend executive producer.
Yeah.
And that's because towards the end of shooting, he actually came up to me and he said, you know, I got to tell you, I've been doing so much on this movie, I think that I should get an executive producer credit on it. And I was like, I'll give you a pretend executive producer credit. So that's where that came from. But yeah, so I mean, he was a huge part of the project, and I mean, in some ways, he kind of became a mascot because everybody on set
loved him.
Yeah, they loved Brian, and he's
such a good kid.
He was one of them, probably the most wholesome people I've ever met. Like he had a really good sense of humor, but it was super clean. And usually, I like I like dick and fart jokes, but like even his type of humor, you know, we all really got into it. And, the videos he did were really clean, almost family friendly, which.
Yeah, I didn't find out till the second film that he was doing stuff and had been for years on his own.
Right. And
he was so quiet and backward, I just didn't expect it. And then when I started talking to him and him opening up, he started showing me videos on his phone. I'm like, holy shit, dude, I didn't know you did this. That's hilarious. I just thought he was just he's really kind of shying backward if you didn't know him, kind of sit back and was quiet. And I couldn't really believe he was there because he was so kind of withdrawn almost. But once he opens up to you, then it's a whole new ballgame.
Right. And I mew he has a YouTube channel that has all his videos called Scattered Storm. So, you know, if anybody's listening, you know, they can get on there and they can check that out. But yeah, so, you know, we planned on, you know, continuing to have him on every project is,
him in the film, the new film, because he was
right, because about a week or two before he passed away, he and I had a Facebook conversation where he was telling me that because his character lived, he was expecting me to bring him back in the third one. And honestly, I planned on doing that. I planned on bringing his character back in because he is the one that got away from the Face. Because the Face, and he's this sadistic slasher and he kills everybody. But Brian got away. And then so we had the premiere and everything at this point. So he had already seen the finished film, and then it was November 29th. There was a really bad car wreck right outside Owensboro, and I mean, everybody heard about it, but nobody knew any names. And his cousin Greg, who I've been friends with for a really long time, messaged me and said, "Hey man, I know that you're one of the first people I should be telling this to because you've gotten really close to my cousin Brian, but he's the one who passed away in that car accident this morning." And I mean, it hit all of us really, really, really fucking hard.
Yeah.
Because like I said, we planned on having him in bigger roles moving forward, and then even helping him on his projects. So
he will be in every film still, some way, somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And we immortalize him in our card game that's going to be coming out. He has there's a specific card that was made for him called Soul Survivor.
Oh,
so
very nice.
He'll be immortalized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's his card
He's
game?
the only card in the game that can. I'm sorry.
What's the card game?
Oh, good question. We were approached by a gentleman who is co-owner of a company called Mythmakers.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Lambert is his name. He's partnered with Barry Baldwin, and they approached PJ, and we got to talking, and they were thinking about making kind of a role-playing game out of our movie. And then the more we started talking about it, it's like, well, if you got this other one coming out, why don't we just incorporate it? So he kind of did a prototype, showed us what he was kind of looking at. We were like, hey, not too bad. And we did a couple of things at a comic shop here and over in Evansville, Indiana, and now a couple of prototypes have been sent off to 4 or 5 horror sites.
Mm-hmm.
So far, it's been pretty good reviews. It's called Body Count, Volumes of Blood Body Count, and it's coming to you from Mythmakers and Blood Moon Pictures, and it's going to be a Kickstarter coming August 11th. And so far, it's gotten pretty good reviews. There's location cards and victim cards and weapon cards and killer cards, and once you have a killer and a weapon and a location, and there's one other, isn't there?
Right. But see, the whole thing is based off the Volumes of Blood universe.
Right.
So everything about the game is from the movie.
Right.
And it started out as their pitch was originally to be some kind of a role-playing card game, but it's actually not a role-playing card game. It's just, at this point, it's a tabletop card game, but what it does is all the players they take the role of a director, and you have to recreate a scene from the movie using location, weapons, and there's character cards, there's killer cards, and you have to create these scenes, but all the directors are pitted against one another because there's all these extra special cards,
wild cards, effect cards.
Right, and the whole purpose of the game is that you have to create a scene and then build a body count.
Mm-hmm.
With victim cards.
And all of these are locations from the movie, weapons used in the movie.
The victims are real victims.
Right, victims from the film. And it doesn't have to be a scene that was exactly from the film, but you get all these options because the film is an anthology, so there's tons of locations, tons of deaths, tons of characters. And personally, I'm not a fan of tabletop card games. I have friends who play like Magic the Gathering and all that, and I used to make fun of them all the time. They hated having me around whenever they would try to play these games, and I personally could not ever get into these games. So I thought it was cool solely from just like a nostalgia, kind of like, oh, one day I'll look back and it would be just kind of cool that there's a game based off the movie. But when they had the original prototype playthrough where we all got together, I actually had a whole lot of fun playing this, which I did not expect, mainly because I don't get into tabletop card games. But what makes it so fun is that while the game is about creating a scene and finishing a scene and building a body count, what it's really about is fucking your opponents over.
That's why I call it the fuck your neighbor game.
Right. And I mean, we've had several people that Cindy Maples actually came to me after she played it, and she played Almeida in the Death Day Party, and she came to me and she said, I played it, I really enjoyed it. It's a game that will ruin friendships. And I was like, perfect. That's awesome. So I'm really excited for this. I mean, we all are, and everybody who's a part of the movie, because it encompasses both movies, the first and the second one, and then there are plans for expansion packs later on, because we're making the third one, which is called Devil's Night, and then we do have plans for some spin-off features based off of characters and situations from the movie.
I like it. Now, I am a card game fan, so and I actually have some videos up of playing and reviewing different card games with my partner Annabelle Lecter, and so I would definitely be into this. This sounds pretty sweet. I'm looking at it right now on the website.
Okay.
We'll see if we can get you a prototype.
Yeah, we'll talk to Josh and we'll have him send you one.
All right, yeah, we'd play it and we'd put up a video review. But yeah, we play all different card games. This one looks very cool. And I grew up playing RPGs too, like D&D, old school ones, the pen and paper and dice and everything.
So, yeah.
I was kidding about making fun of them, guys.
I grew up watching professional wrestling, horror movies, and playing D&D. So I was a very cool child, apparently.
I played D&D a few times in my heyday, many moons ago.
Back in the 80s.
Many moons.
Yeah, okay. That's the other thing. I'm quite a bit older than PJ, so that's another ongoing joke with us. So.
Oh, I see. How old is PJ?
I mean,
I turned 35 in March.
All right, I'm older than PJ too.
I turned 37 in June.
I'm older than both of you. I feel very old now.
No, plus 13 years. I just turned 50.
He turned 37 in June, 40 years ago.
I'm nice in the middle then. I'm all right.
Yeah, I turned 50 last month.
All right. Well, happy birthday. I turned 40 last year. So.
There you go.
Yeah. And then it was a terrible year. I spent 3 months in the hospital. So 41's been a lot better than 40, but you mentioned festivals for the first movie. Has the second one played any festivals, or are you planning on that?
No, not really. I mean, it's funny.
How was she supposed to play it in Canada or something?
Well, we when we had the premiere for the sequel, it did screen in Canada at a festival that happened that same weekend, and it screened in another.
Was it Finland?
Mm-hmm. They were interested, but there's been interest from festivals. Here's what I've come to learn about festivals, and I'm sure there's two ways of looking at this. But with the first film, we spent a ton of money submitting it to festivals, and the majority of the ones that we paid for, it got rejected, which we were very confused by, because it's
and you don't get your money back.
Right, but it's like when you have Arrow in the Head or Dread Central or Bloody Disgusting saying you made one of the best films of the year as far as like horror films are concerned, and then you submit it to a bunch of festivals. I mean, I personally kind of anticipated everybody to go, oh yeah,
right,
awesome, and screen the film. That didn't happen. But then you see like Justin made The Barn, and he's gotten into like 200 festivals. So I'm not entirely sure what the secret is to getting in. I mean, I always just say it's because Justin made a better movie than what we did. But, you know, so when it came, so we spent a whole lot of money that ultimately was just wasted on festivals. Mm-hmm. A majority of the festivals that did screen at were either because it was run by someone who knows me, or because I've already had direct contact with the festival. And then there's the few that it got into that had no connection with us. Mm-hmm. So going into the sequel, we were just like, we're not going to waste any money on festivals, because it's kind of, you know, it's taking a chance, you know, and it's great to have a laurel, and it's great to have, an award, mm-hmm. but really, it doesn't really get you much later on if you think about it. I mean, it's cool to have a reward at the time, mm-hmm. but I have awards for other films that have just been sitting on a shelf collecting dust from other festivals. Mm-hmm. So it's cool in the moment, but then like later on, it doesn't really amount to anything. Mm-hmm. So going forward and being more serious about this, we said, do we need to submit to festivals, or should we save that money and allocate that to other areas? So we opted out of screening at festivals. I did contact a whole bunch of festivals, and I said, look, I'll send you the movie to look at. You know, Blumhouse called it a cult hit, and Arrow in the Head said it's, you know, or iHorror said it's an anthology powerhouse or whatever. So if you want to base whether or not you guys want to sit down and watch the film off of all these glowing reviews, that's great, but we're not going to pay any money to submit a movie. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of up to you guys as to whether or not. And I was surprised at how many festivals actually said, okay, sure. And I kind of wish we'd done that with the first movie, and we would have saved a whole bunch of money.
Yeah.
Now I will say that it hasn't gotten accepted into a lot of festivals. Mm-hmm. Once again, Justin has still made a better movie than we have.
Yeah, apparently.
But yeah, so I mean, I don't know what the secret is to getting in. I know that if I have a direct connection to a festival, mm-hmm. it takes nothing to get a movie into the festival.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the problems with the festivals with the second movie is a lot of them didn't show the first one or don't know the first one. So it's like, oh, they think it's a sequel. It's not a standalone.
Right.
That's what I think has happened, and they're not going to just automatically say, well, we didn't watch the first one, so we're not going to do the sequel. They just say, we just get a thing, sorry.
Well, and the other reality, too, is I think, you know, some films play better at a festival where others don't. And, I mean, what few festivals have screened the first movie, they said the audience really got into it. I know that during the premiere for both movies, the audiences really got into the movie. But I know that some films just don't play as well at festivals, and others do. So I don't know if maybe that's the case where this just really isn't a festival movie. I don't know. It is Horror Stories is a lot darker in tone. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of, I mean, there's comedy, and there's, you know, there's basically the film runs the gamut with subgenres, but I don't know. I don't know if it's just not maybe a festival movie, or, you know, someone who watched it legitimately didn't like it, or they didn't even bother watching it. I mean, I really don't know what the issue is with the festivals, but we've pretty much opted out of even wasting our time with festivals, especially if we had to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, two things there. I think it would play well at festivals or conventions because there is so much in the movie that hardcore horror fans would relate to and get all the little references and the meta stuff. But you're not the first person I heard on the show talk about the festivals be kind of almost like a cash grab for some people, where, you know, it depends on the festival. I'm not saying all of them are like that, but some of them are really just trying to get a bunch of money, and you don't necessarily really get anything out of having your movie there, especially when it's not your first movie, because we've had people on who said it's really good for your first film, but not necessarily to keep doing it. And it's also a good way to network and meet other filmmakers. not necessarily to get your movie out there.
Right.
So,
and the thing is I mean, it's I think you're right about that. I mean, going to festivals obviously is a really good way to network, but like a majority of the networking that I've done has been on Facebook.
mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I have to say, Moses Mosley was in the film basically because of festivals.
Yeah.
Well, PJ ran into him first, then we ran into him a couple of times after that at other festivals, and it was like, hey, you should come be in our new film. He's like, yeah, cool. We're like, oh, that'll never happen. Then PJ contacted him. He's like, oh, yeah, this and that. We're like, we can do that. We showed up and we did it.
Well, that worked then for you. So, what is it like to watch your movie though with an audience? Is it nerve-wracking at all, or is it just a positive experience, or does it depend?
I think it really kind of depends. It's funny because different audiences react differently, especially like the premiere. Usually the premiere is always a really exciting one because the majority of the cast is there, and then of course a lot of people that are there are friends or family or extended family of people that have something to do with the film, so they're really, really going to get into it. As far as watching the film with an audience, I think by the time we screened the movie, I had already seen the entire film probably a dozen times, because while the directors edited we gave them final cut, the directors, so they got to edit all their sequences, but then they would send in their finished sequence. And then what happened was I put everything together. So I took all the elements and put them all together. And then, of course, you have to watch it again and again and again just to make sure you don't miss any, jump cuts or anything like that. So by the time that I saw the film with the premiere night audience, it's still fun, but I've already seen it like a dozen times. So I was already tired of watching the movie.
Yeah. I'll second that, because once he would get done editing, here, watch this, see if you see anything or what do you think, and then I would watch it and then do that a couple more times, and then all the festivals we went to and showing it around here, and
right.
God, how many times have we seen Barnes more? 50?
Yeah. It's you finally get to a point where you're like, all right, I'm just done seeing this movie. And
you're sick of it.
Yeah, and it's not that you don't like it or you're not proud of it. It's just you've seen it so many times, you just don't want to see it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the last time we watched it, there had been a lull where we had we had not sat down and watched it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So sitting down, I think it was May Day Film Festival is when we watched it again for the first time. That was the first time in several months.
Like if an actual movie theater, big screen.
Right. It was in a theater on the big screen. So it was kind of, at that point, it was, because it'd been a while, it was actually kind of cool, and the audience really got into it and they dug it. So that helped. And because, so that wasn't so bad. But the funny thing is when you make a movie, the more you watch it, the more you catch all the mistakes in it.
Oh yeah.
So, and every time you watch it, you catch a new mistake.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like every time we rewatch it, I go to PJ, hey, I just saw this and saw that. It was really bad for Volumes of Blood, the first one.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Every time I watch it, I come to PJ and go, oh, guess what I just saw?
Right. There's a lot of issues with the first film from either an editing standpoint, or mainly it's from a production standpoint, because it was so run and gun. We literally had 8 hours on a Saturday night to shoot every sequence, but you have the setup and the breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
So really you only have about 6 hours to shoot a sequence. So everybody is running around like chickens with their heads cut off. So, I mean, there's tons of problems, like water bottles in the shot. There's one really long, like, move-in shot. I think it's on Encyclopedia Satanica, where you see the librarian's desk where she's sitting there, and there's lenses from the camera.
3 camera lenses
sitting on the desk right there where you can see them.
And to the left of the desk, there's the camera bag laying on the floor.
Right. So it's like you catch all these different things. Now, of course, if you're an audience member and you're not looking for that, or you have seen the film for the first time, You might catch a few things, but by now, I mean, we've caught 200 things.
Yeah.
Right.
But the good thing about that is it makes you more aware of these mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always said that making a film is learning what not to do the next time you make a film.
Which I really think it helped with continuity on the second one because of all the stuff we found and saw in the first one. It was like, oh, remember when we need to make sure. So it kept us more conscious of what was being done and, being more nitpicky about certain things.
So, what were some of your favorite anthologies before you guys got into filmmaking?
Well, I got to be honest. I haven't seen all the anthologies that are out there. I have a couple recorded. I got to catch up on to see.
Uh-huh.
What, Creepshow?
You've never seen Creepshow?
Has to be.
Oh, okay.
What's that?
I thought you meant you've never seen Creepshow, but you were about to say that's one that you like.
No. I would have to say off the top of my head right now that's probably because I haven't a lot of the ones that have been done as of late, like VHS or sorry if I was screaming, didn't mean to. VHS or was it Trick or Treat?
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to admit I haven't seen those.
Mm-hmm.
No, not. You believe that?
You haven't seen Trick or Treat?
Mm-hmm.
Trick or Treat's great. I don't think you really need to see VHS. You can skip that one. But
yeah, I've been
told. Pretty awesome.
Now VHS 2 I did like.
I do have
VHS.
I do have VHS DVR. I have to admit, and I haven't watched it yet.
Mm-hmm.
I do not have Trick or Treat. But yeah, I love Creepshow. I thought that was pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to think. Because I've seen a ton of. Obviously, Creepshow before Trick or Treat.
Mm-hmm.
Creepshow is kind of the quintessential horror anthology. I mean, you just, of course, Creepshow 2, I really enjoy that. I won't say Trick or Treat is a quintessential. I would say it's a quintessential Halloween-based anthology. I have not seen was it Tales of Halloween?
Yeah,
because
that's really good too.
I haven't seen it, but it hasn't come out anywhere around here. I know that you can like pre-order the Blu-ray or whatever, but it's a 5-disc set.
Yeah,
we
were lucky.
Seen it anywhere.
It played here Halloween at one of our local theaters in Boston, so we were happy about that.
Tales from the Dark Side, I enjoy.
Forgot about that one. Seen that one.
That one. The first movie, and this is one of those anthologies. I don't know if it's not really well known, but it's called After Midnight. It's from 1989. Mm-hmm. There's actually the classroom scene from the first film is kind of an homage to After Midnight in the first film. Mm-hmm. But recently, I watched Holidays and I watched the XX. Mm-hmm. And I was not blown away by either one of those. I liked VHS 2. I liked Southbound. Mm-hmm. I thought VHS Viral had some potential, but I don't feel like it came through. And I'm not trying to bash any of these films. I was kind of harsh on when I gave my reviews of Holidays and XX. I was kind of harsh on those, but. I think, going into like modern day anthologies, it's like, you look at some of these films like Monsterland or Zombie World, mm-hmm. A few others, and you'll watch, or like ABCs of Death, for instance, you'll have 26 shorts, mm-hmm. and 4 or 5 of them are actually good, and then you kind of just sleep or suffer through the rest of them. Mm-hmm. But, a lot of these films anymore are like these anthology films they're literally, and I've been saying this a lot lately, but they're literally just someone says, I want to be a producer and produce an anthology film. And then they get on YouTube and they look and watch all these random shorts. Then they contact a filmmaker and say, I'm making an anthology and I really like your movie to be a part of this. And of course, that filmmaker is going to say yes because it's someone interested in using their short that would otherwise just be on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, okay, we've got a feature because we got 6 random shorts, not interconnected. There's nothing between them. It's like you might have one or two that are really good, and then the rest of them, you're like, why are these even in here?
It just meets the time frame for a feature, and that's it.
Right. And so, like, for me personally, that was my real big problem with modern anthologies. It was like, there's just not a whole lot of thought put into it. It's, let's get a bunch of random shorts, let's slap them together, let's give it some cool looking box art, and then we'll throw it out there on a shelf and we'll make a little money. But there's no heart and there's no passion in it. Now, some of the passion may have got put into the initial making of these shorts,
Sure.
but the making of the film itself, there's nothing smart about it. There's nothing interesting about it. And because it's just random, you basically, it's like, instead of spending $14.99 on these movies at Walmart, you can just get on YouTube and find them and watch them for free. So if that's the case, YouTube is one giant lifelong anthology. You just get on there and watch these shorts all day, horror shorts. So anyway, going into Volumes of Blood, that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to say, okay, we're going to create some kind of a wraparound. We're going to have all these stories interconnected. You know, and we're not trying to be fresh. We're not trying to be smart about it, but we do want to try to do something different. We want it to be, you know, a horror film for horror fans made by horror fans. But we don't want it to be like every other anthology. So that's kind of the genesis of the Volumes of Blood, where the Volumes of Blood movies stem from. Was my distaste for a lot of these modern anthologies, because they're just flat together.
Yeah, I agree with that. The one I really would suggest is that you guys check out is Tales of Halloween, Tales from Halloween, and because it's the opposite of what you're saying about the bad ones. There's characters that are in each of the shorts, and you know, it's like a movie that's connected to everything. But I really enjoyed Volumes of Blood, both of them. In fact, when you're talking earlier about it as a sequel, you can definitely see horror stories without watching the first one. In fact, I went and watched the first one after watching the second one because I liked it so well. So, and I hopefully that works out too for people who didn't see Volumes of Blood. You know, they'll go back and check that out now that it's on Amazon once they see horror stories.
Well, we've actually had that happen already, where people have came to the, you know, they saw it at one of the few festivals it screened at, or even the night of the premiere, and we're talking to them, and they're like, "Oh, there's a first one." So then they would get on, you know, Amazon, and they would check it out, and that's kind of what. Whenever we went into the sequel, the original concept for it was going to be a direct sequel to the second one. And then the more I thought about it, I got with Eric, and we kind of decided that it doesn't need to be a direct sequel. It needs to be its own experience. It can reference or give fan service, if you will, to the first film. But ultimately, it's like, what's the purpose of making a sequel to a movie that a majority of people may not have already seen? So the second one needs to be a standalone film, and we're going into the third one the same way. It's going to be its own movie, but it will encompass all the films. But it's going to be done in such a way that it'll feel like you're seeing one story, but really there's a much larger overall story going on because of the other two films. So if you've seen the other films, you'll be like, oh, that's really cool. But if you haven't seen horror stories or Volumes of Blood, then you'll be able to watch the third one and hopefully be satisfied with the outcome.
That's like I was going to reference a while ago with Nathan and his Murder, Death, Killer in the second one, where he references back to the first Murder, Death, Killer 3. Oh, that was a joke, and the 40-year-old football player, and I love how he and the BOV world with the Friday the 13th world, like he's talking about, he's making fun of the Friday the 13th from the first Volumes of Blood, like it's a real thing. And I thought that was, I don't know if you wrote that or if Nathan wrote that, but
no, that was Nathan.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool how you referenced back to the first movie, and going back, and since you've seen the first one, I actually, after you watched the first one, I'm going to get your reaction. A friend of mine watched the first movie, and 2 minutes into the movie was like, how do I get out of this? This is going to suck. Because the first Murder, Death, Killer 3 with the Corvette and all that, he really thought this whole movie was going to be just like that. He was really wanting, because he came to the premiere, I think. And he wanted to leave. He was done. And then after it kicked in, he ended up loving the movie. But I just think it's funny now that sequence is now in the second one referenced. And he was ready to leave the first movie because of that. But since you saw the second one first, you probably didn't get the same vibe out of it.
Right. Yeah. But it was actually cool watching the first one second, because then I did see, hey, this was, a callback to this movie with the Death Killer and everything. So it was a lot of fun. I really liked the first one. I liked the second one too.
Thank you.
And how far along is the third one besides just the idea?
Right now it's in the scripting phase. We're still in early development on it. The wraparound has been written, and there is, and the rest of it's kind of either it's going through rewrites, because we're going back to kind of what the first one was. The first film was 5 sequences, a wraparound, and 4 stories. We got a little overindulgent with the second one.
Yeah.
We came in just under 2 hours. That felt like a bit much. Yes, the movie still kind of moves at a brisk pace and doesn't necessarily feel like 2 hours, but you're still dedicating 2 hours of your life to this little independent horror film. So we decided to kind of go back to the original structure, which is 5 stories. So we have the wraparound and 4 sequences. But the entire concept is fleshed out, where the first one takes place almost entirely in a library. You have the second one that takes place almost entirely in a house. The third one's going to take place almost entirely in a police station. And it's about these 4 random strangers who have been arrested, and they're brought into the station, and this detective brings them into an interrogation room and sits them down and interrogates them about this horrible event that they were a part of the night before. So it's Halloween morning, and it goes back to October 30th, which is Devil's Night, and they tell their side of the story, and that's how it becomes an anthology. And of course, there's a whole lot more going on than just that, but that is, in essence, the story of the third movie. And
we basically have 2 directors in place. We know it for sure. 3 stories are in the writing phase, right? We have 3 of the stories. 4 are in the writing phase, and then 2 directors in place. And that's basically a couple of people we know we want to come back as actors or actresses, but whether it's going to fit the time frame or we can work it out, maybe another thing. That's it. Just the 4 stories and the 2 directors is about as far as we've gotten.
And a bucket full of ideas, but nothing is set in stone.
Right. Now, you mentioned a couple times on different websites that reviewed both movies. Do you read all the reviews, and how do you take it if someone gives it a negative review?
Well, I'll be interested to have Eric. I'll say my little piece about it first, and then I'll be interested to see what Eric thinks. But my experience with reviews goes all the way back to 2009. So the first review that I ever got was also one of the worst reviews I've ever gotten. And that hit me really hard, because I wasn't used to that kind of criticism, and it wasn't constructive. It was literally like, this is a piece of shit. The director's a piece of shit. Script was a piece of shit, and so on and so forth. And I thought, oh my God, what have I done? But then as the movie went on, it got some good reviews, and it bounced back and forth, and it got mixed. And so that's kind of happened over the years. And as the more you're exposed to it, the thicker your skin gets. So now if someone can look at me and go, you made the worst film of this year or ever, it's a piece of shit, you should kill yourself. And I'll look at them and say, well, I appreciate you taking the time to watch it because you could have easily just turned it off.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So at least you took the time to suffer through it and then give your piece about it. And that much I can appreciate. But the funny thing is whenever we sent the first volumes of Blood out there, I expected it to be the same situation where you get a mix of reviews. You get, this is good, this is bad. But that wasn't the case. We pretty much got all glowing reviews across the board, except for maybe like one or two that was lukewarm. But for the most part, it was just like, for all intents and purposes, critically acclaimed, I guess you could say. Now, going into the sequel, it started out that same way, but along the way, we've gotten a couple reviews that said, well, here are the pros and here are the cons. Mm-hmm. But this past week, and this is what I think is fascinating about the whole review situation. I think it was Wednesday. No, wait, it was Wednesday of last week. We got a review from a website that said the movie was an amateurish mess, and they only talked about how bad the movie was. It was the first really, really negative review. It's probably the worst review that I've experienced since I did Hell's Eve back in 2008 and got reviewed in 2009.
It's the worst one since we've been working together.
Right. Funny enough, though, the very next day we get another review, and it's literally one end of the spectrum to the other. This website says this movie's genre-defining and is a masterpiece, you know? So I think it's really funny how much people's opinions differ. Because one website, the guy literally says this movie has no merit whatsoever. And then the guy over here, you'd think that like Christopher Nolan had made the movie.
Uh-huh.
So I say all that to say this. It didn't bother me because I'm used to, that kind of a thing. However, Eric is not really used to really bad reviews like that. It didn't bother me.
No, well, we talked about this the other
I know,
day.
but I kind of expected it to get under your skin.
No, because you told me about it and I hadn't seen it yet. And here's the thing, and I'm going to be honest with you. PJ's been doing this a lot longer. I'm older. I got married and got out. That's one of the reasons I haven't seen a lot of the horror movies. My wife isn't into them, so I've never really got an opportunity to. It's either I go in the other room and ignore my wife and daughter, or I'm.
That's what I do.
Yeah. So, but your wife will watch horror. But anyway. So from the first movie to the second movie, all the rave reviews, I was not getting a big head. I was basically almost a little surprised and shocked. I mean, not that I don't think that they're not good movies and we didn't do a good job, and not that I don't have self-esteem. I was just really like, oh my God, did we really do this good of a job? Because I like the movies, don't get me wrong, and I'm proud of them. And I want people to see them, but I was really shocked as well. And, then when PJ starts telling me about Blumhouse and Arrow in the Head and all these other ones that have given all these. And then he told me about this one. And I got on there and read it. And I read it. And I read it. And I kept waiting. Okay, well, you're going to say something good. Kept reading and got to the point. This guy had zero. Uh-huh. Not one thing did he say good about the movie. Not even when he was dogging the actors or actresses in the film. Even he goes, if I had to say anything good about one actor, it might be this person. Right. So it was still kind of a negative. And I told PJ, I was like, did this guy just say like, I've given 99 out of 100 good reviews and I need to do a bad one? Did he have a bad day and it just struck him wrong? Was there something in his film that reminded him something? Because it was like, he went out to purposely dog the movie, not that he was just giving his critique, because it is just, he gave it, can I say how much you give it star-wise? Was that good?
Oh, yeah.
He gave it a 2 out of 10.
Wow.
Okay, well, 2 out of 10, okay, that's 20%. That's not zero.
Right.
But,
so it has to be something you like.
I told PJ this. We got 30, 40, 50, 60, 100, I don't know how many great reviews from the first film. Same thing from the second one. So this one guy, to me, is a drop in a swimming pool.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Is it bad? Yes. I don't think we're ever going to make a movie where somebody's not going to like it. I made a reference to PJ. You don't think some critic out there didn't dog Forrest Gump? somebody had to have not liked it.
Right.
You know, and we're not at that caliber. So I'm just shocked that we've gotten as good as we've had. But this guy was really just, I mean, it was cinematography, it was directing, it was location, it was story, it was plot, it was acting, it was makeup, everything.
Eric actually texted me and said, "Do you think this guy has a vendetta against us?"
Yeah.
Because that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
But I didn't know who this guy was.
Did he know somebody in the film? Did he know you beforehand? I mean, you know, because it is, you know, I'll take a bad review. If I'm going to get 30 good ones and one bad one, hey, I'm good with that ratio. I'll take that percentage any day. But it was just the fact, I mean, I'm not going to tell what I said. I was like, you know, did this person have a death in the family the day before? I mean, I was really like questioning, like, I mean, you know, it was awful. I'm surprised, honestly, after reading it, we got a 2. I'm surprised it wasn't a 0.5.
Considering what we've been extremely fortunate to make, you know, because we're doing independent, low-budget horror. Lately, horror has been huge. It's the top shows on television, the top films in the theater have been, you know, horror. So we've been really fortunate because a lot of independent horror is, you know, scoffed at or looked down upon. So it took 3 years for us to get a bad review.
Right. I mean,
so I would say that's
bad review, not a up and down. Here was the pros and cons. Like
even the pros and cons, I don't consider a constructive review a bad review.
Yeah,
because they say here's what I don't like about it, here's what I do like about it. So
there was positive and negative.
Right. But as far as like a bad negative review, it took 3 years for us to get there.
I told PJ, I said, did this guy get a call right before he did his review and his wife telling me he was cheating on him with his brother? I mean, what the hell? I mean, it's you know.
Uh-huh.
Well, I went back and I looked at some of his other reviews.
I was going to ask that, yeah.
And they were bad. So I've just come to terms with the fact that this reviewer hates movies. And what he does is a chore.
Uh-huh.
So it didn't matter if he made a good or a bad movie. He was going to hate it no matter what.
It's like he set out to be like everybody else always gives good reviews. I'm just going to give a bad one for everyone I watch.
I was a bit suspicious when it was from awfulreviews.com. But that's, you know, I just kept my fingers crossed.
But honestly, it did not bother me. Like I said, the ratio of the good to bad, if that's the only one we're going to get like that, then so be it. I'll take it. I'm humbled. I know what we've done. I know what we put into it. I know what PJ and I set out to do. And then we got to that point. Somebody's not going to like it. There's people I know that they're like, so what? I mean, we can't please everybody. Not everybody likes horror. So, you know, I blew it off. I was just more like, you know, this dude's just mad at the world.
Right. What Eric is trying to say is he knows we're the shit.
Yeah.
And this one guy,
but it's not
King Kong ain't got nothing on us.
But it's not ego. It's not ego.
So it comes out August 1st. Is that the DVD and the Blu-ray, or is it also going to be on video on demand?
I think from what I gather, I think DVD and VOD is first. Then the Blu-ray is going to come a little bit after that.
Okay.
And then along with family video.
Mm-hmm. So how important is video on demand to independent films?
Well, from just talks and stuff that I've been hearing and seeing, I think it's becoming huge. Because people don't have to leave the house; they can just order it, still watch it on their TV. They don't have to rent it, buy it, wait for it to come in. They don't have to go rent it. They don't have to pre-order it. They can just, you know, download it to their TV, watching a computer burner or whatever. I think it's like the next big thing, I guess, you know.
I think it's important for what we do because at our level, we're not Hollywood. When a big studio makes a movie for $250 million, it's almost guaranteed that it's going to be seen. But when you're a small independent, you know, production, it's a lot harder to get your movies out there. So when you get your film on something like video on demand, iTunes or Amazon,
I think Amazon Prime helped us.
Shudder, whatever. Ultimately, what that does is, because the whole point of doing film is so other people can watch it and experience it, whether you enjoy it or you're like this reviewer who absolutely hated it, it still got watched, and someone can give an opinion on it. There's no point in making film or doing a movie if no one's ever going to see it. If it's going to be on your system at home, and the only people that ever watch it are the people you burn a DVD for. Now, when you're first starting out or you're in high school or whatever, I mean, that's kind of the case. That's fine. But when you start doing it at the level that we're doing it, the whole purpose is wider release, wider audience. Yeah. That's what you want. So video on demand, I think, is huge. And we all know at this point that DVD and Blu-ray are kind of going the way of the dinosaur anyway. And as much as I hate that, because I'm kind of a collector of movies, I love having a physical copy.
I do too.
And I don't like the idea of having all my movies on a hard drive that's eventually going to crash. But that's kind of where it's going, and it creates that opportunity for people who may never in a million years have ever seen your movie because they don't go to Target or Best Buy and buy movies sight unseen.
Yeah, there's been several comments I've seen on Facebook, not by a lot, but a few where people are like, "Oh, that's on Amazon Prime? I didn't know that. I'm going to watch that tonight." Or somebody's like, "Well, how do I get this?" Well, you can rent it. You can rent it at Family Video. You can order from Best Buy. It's on Amazon Prime. Oh, I have Amazon Prime. So I think it's helped us because a lot of people, it's like, because they're contacting us from another state. And or overseas, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, I've got Amazon Prime. I didn't know it was on there." And then boom, I'll watch that today. So I see that becoming a bigger thing.
I myself,
which is good.
Yeah, now I watch a lot of stuff online too, but there is something about having the physical copy, and plus, just listen to the commentary track and everything, and which normally you can't do online. It was weird. I just got a new computer a couple months ago, and when I went to watch something on it, I noticed it has no disk drive, and it's a brand new computer. And from what I understand, most new computers today don't come with disk drives because they think they're passé. But I personally would like to have a disk drive on my computer, but it's just very strange.
That is weird. It's kind of like, you get cars now that don't have CD players.
Right.
They've only got the plug-in, for your phone or whatever, so you can listen to Pandora. It's kind of like that. But I think what it comes down to is it comes down to, majority rules. So most people are getting their films off video on demand.
Well, they're also getting kickbacks from the places like Howard Stern's on Sirius and all them. They're getting give them the option in the beginning, and they're giving them kickbacks. They are.
Right.
Put this in all your cars. So, but if they have a DVD player, it's taken away from that. So, yeah.
I actually got made fun of the other day because it was super hot outside, so I took a picture of the temperature from the console on my dashboard, and somebody asked what was wrong with my clock, and I said, "Oh no, that's the time code from the CD player." And they were like, "Who has a CD player?" So I got made fun of for having a CD player.
I have a cassette tape. What are you talking about? I have a cassette player. I really do.
Oh yeah, you do.
You do.
But he also was 27, 48 years ago.
Here we go.
That's pretty cool. So, what's the best way to follow Volumes of Blood and your future projects online?
The easiest way to do that is just our Facebook page. So it's facebook.com/VOB anthology. We're on Twitter now, which is
and Instagram.
And we're working on updating our website. We have a website, but we're kind of revamping it, and we're doing some new things, different things with it.
Hoping that will be out and published in August.
Right.
I hope that's the hope. The other one we had long story short, we're having to come revamp and start over. Hopefully, we're supposed to meet August 1st and go over some things. And if that works out, then hopefully by the second or third week of August, we'll have it up and some things on it. It may be small, but it'll be up and running.
Yeah. Well, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, those are kind of the easiest and best ways to either get in touch with us or find out, what's going on with Volumes of Blood.
Or egobrothers.com, PJ and Eric.
There is that. Something else this is something that just really kind of started hitting today because they started shipping it out. But Justin Mabry, who helps run Trick or Treat Studios, which is one of the top mask making companies in the U.S. He made the devil mask from the first film, which also shows up in the second film, which will also show up in the third film. So they've got that officially licensed, and you can actually go to Trick or Treat Studios and order it website, and you can order the devil mask, so you can actually own a piece of Volumes of Blood. And somebody they've been taking pre-orders for it, and somebody who lives here got theirs today, and they actually sent us the mask in the packaging. And it's a professional company, so the whole thing looks very professional, and it's got the banner poster, the banner ad thing, that holds the plastic together at the top that you would hang on a hook, and it's got the mask, and it says officially licensed Volumes of Blood devil mask, and it was a really surreal thing to see that.
And there's a little picture of the poster from the first movie, on the little cardboard.
So if anybody wants a devil mask, you can go to trickortreatstudios.com and check that out.
And August 11th, the card game.
And then on August 11th, the card game is kicking off with a Kickstarter through Mythmaker Games. And then we're in early development on Volumes of Blood 3. And then eventually 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Very cool. Though, I assume you guys will get all these masks and everything. But do you have any actual props from the films? Did you guys keep any?
Unless it was ones that we were able to borrow from people. A lot of the ones we had to have made because of safety issues with certain knives and stuff. But most of the props that were used, they're stored at PJ's house. They're stored at my house. Nathan Milner may have a couple of pieces that he used from a couple of his movies, but he still has them. They're around. But yeah, we do have them. Most of them we do have, unless it completely got destroyed.
Right. Yeah. We have boxes of costumes.
Yeah.
Probably like 7 or 8 boxes full of costumes from the second movie.
I will say the bong got destroyed.
There was a bong. It did get destroyed there. We've got a bunch of, my basement is full of furniture, random furniture and things from that. We're going to have to work on getting like probably an office space or something to start trying to hold. I know that my wife, Trina, that's what she wants. She's always yelling at me to clean out the basement.
Yeah. Between my attic and closet and computer room and his basement. Yeah, we're starting to get where we can't keep it all anymore, and we're going to have to get a big storage unit that has heating and air because some of the stuff would just be destroyed.
Right.
So,
well, I want to thank you.
Britons or anything.
Well, I want to thank you both for coming on. It's been a lot of fun talking to you, and I really enjoyed Volumes of Blood, the first one, and Horror Stories, and I'm looking forward to the third one.
Well, thank you, sir. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Good talking to you.
Hi, this is Herschel Gordon Lewis, and you are listening to WithoutYourHead.com.